Let's get into your reading preferences as we kind of wrap up.
Mm.
What's the last book you read? What are you currently reading? And what's next for you to read?
I just finished, so I am reading this Romanian thing,
Oh,
Ioan Slavic, big 19th century Romanian writer. He writes a lot about sort of shepherds and countryside people. And my grandparents were farmers, or are. One of them is still alive. So I grew up around a lot of animal herding and waking up at the crack of dawn to go plow the land and all of this stuff that sounds insane now that I've lived in London for. It sounds out of a different century, but such as Eastern Europe, I guess. I'm enjoying that a lot. And then I just recently finished Gone Girl,
oh, okay.
which I bought. I buy a lot of books in charity shops, and since we moved, there's new charity shops in the area to explore. And I found it, and I was like, oh, I've always wanted to read this because I've seen the movie, and there's a whole cult following of the female protagonist. So I was like, oh, I always wanted to see how it compares. And one of my interests is this sort of adaptation, like text to screen or text to stage. And it is just very good, I have to say. I love the movie, I love the book. There's nothing in the book where sometimes I'm reading and I'm like editing in my head. I'm like, oh, okay, cut this out. Like, why did you leave this in? There was nothing extra in it, and it was not lacking anything. It was just a perfect book. And I'm not typically a thriller type of person, but it was just so good. I'm also reading with a book club that I'm running on my various apps. The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. Very good. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. But again, this sort of fairy tale with a twist adaptation, sort of a feminist spin. And it's kind of ironic because one of the videos that I'm working on is how I hate feminist spins on existing Hollywood IP because everybody's too lazy to come up with new narratives. So they're like, what if we make this again, but with a female lead? And they're like, we're going to make her a strong woman. Okay, calm down. But this is, I guess, before all of that happened. So it just reads different, you know? And also, feminist doesn't mean that the woman wins in the end. Sometimes she doesn't win, she loses, and that is the point. It's a critique, you know. But anyways, I won't get too much into that because I can get intense. Future, who knows? I mean, I have two boxes in the packing process. I realized 2 boxes worth of things I have not read. Talk about overconsumption. I think Lolita is in my near future.
Very good. Yeah.
There's a lot of misunderstanding of that book online. I might make a video about that too. But we'll see. We'll see.
Perfect. Let's do some rapid fire book questions. So, what's an important book that you don't see a lot of people talking about?
Oh, The Divine Comedy, of course. I mean, have you met me?
There we go. So, speaking of that, what character in the Divine Comedy do you relate to most?
Oh, I think Dante himself. I am on a journey, you know.
All right. If you could add a new circle of hell into the Inferno, what would you punish?
I would punish people who like to make fun of other people's reading choices to make themselves look better.
Awesome answer. Favorite page turner of the year so far?
Anita Bruckner. Rules of Engagement. The Rules of Engagement. I was not expecting that. I read Hotel du Lac, which is supposed to be like her best book, whatever. And then I found this other book by her, and very little happens in that book. But she is so good in terms of plot, nothing happens. But she's just so good at writing interiority and like making you fascinated with the character. Like, why do they think the things that they think? She's so good. Anyways, that's it.
We'll make sure to add that book to the show notes as well. A book that challenged your worldview.
Very good question. I think recently, My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, which is why I thought maybe Lolita is next, because it's a similar, very heart-wrenching story about abuse in the relationship between a teacher and a student. And I don't think I enjoy complex characters and like difficult topics, but I don't. Sometimes when it comes to super traumatic themes revolving around women, I just take a step back because I'm not always ready.
Yeah.
You know. But I read that and I was expecting to be put off, but I wasn't at all. It was a great book.
Well said. What modern book feels like it belongs in an Inferno or Dante's Inferno?
Very interesting. I think there's a lot of West African writing that gives me sort of Dante vibes, like a lot of Chinua Achebe and some of his characters. I was recently, like months ago, I was talking to somebody about A Man of the People, which is about this like young man who gets into politics in Nigeria, and meets like the older politician that he's been supporting and was very impressed by. And like when he meets him as a person, he sort of realizes how fallible he is and even corrupt, and he himself kind of gets wrapped up in this circle of and the sort of intoxicating experience of having some sort of power and status in society, and then realizing that he's falling farther and farther away from his principles and is himself becoming corrupted. And Dante Inferno is actually a lot about politics, which most people don't realize when starting to read it, and about like the struggle between knowing what kind of person you should be and sort of the constant temptation to just take the easy way and not stand up for what you believe in.
Perfect. And last question on the rapid fire. What's the best part of being a book content creator?
Ooh, I think making something and putting your thoughts out there and getting validation as a word gets thrown around a lot, but like validation in its most pure sense, as in somebody hears what you have to say and says either, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I see what you're talking about. Like, it's very affirming to know that you're not crazy. That somebody that you've managed to commune across space and sometimes time. People watch videos months later with somebody else who is thinking something, and you were able to like express that for them. Which is, I think, it's a big thing for me personally, because obviously this is not my first language, and I sometimes feel it's difficult for me to fully make myself understood and express the things that I'm thinking. So that feels great when that happens.
Love to hear it. The way we end this podcast is a two-sided question, but you can answer it however you want. The first part of it is, what would you like to see more of in the book world?
More community and more nuance.
Perfect. And on the other side, what would you like to see less of in the book world?
I would like to see fewer people trying to be influencers.
Interesting.
If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookupapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.